Hey guys, how's it going? Like Butter here, and today I got another Division video for you with the official date for 1.8 according to State of the Game yesterday. Now, I waited about a day to post this just to see if there was any, confusion or anybody saying that it wasn't this specific date. But it turns out that they are purposely not telling us the exact date, but also giving us hints as to when that date is. They said something along the lines on State of the Game that it's going to release on the same date that it always releases. Updates always come out on Tuesday. They confirmed that it will be coming out next week, which means that it will be December 5th, like I said in my last video. Now, that doesn't make me Confucius. I just knew that with having a State of the Game, the only way that they would do it is if they had something new to announce, and the new thing that they did announce was that 1.8 was going to release next week, and then the global event is going to release the week after that. So we don't have an exact date on that quite yet, but you can probably expect it like maybe 5 or 6 days later, and we'll just have to see on that. Other things that they talked about on State of the Game, they talked about Rogue 2.0 a little bit, and I want to give a little bit of my opinion. I've been playing the Division for the last 3-4 days now, and I want to give my opinion on why I think the Dark Zone is losing players. Keith and Terry talked about the Dark Zone losing players because they think that there are more deaths due to PvP than PvE. They showed a graph that I really liked. It showed that when the game first came out, most player deaths came from PvE. And then eventually, over time, it seemed like more and more player deaths came from rogues. And I think that there's a few reasons why that is. One of the big reasons, because obviously as the game gets older and older, people become more experienced. They learn where the NPCs are going to spawn, and they learn how to deal with those NPCs. There's also another factor of the NPCs getting a lot weaker over time because they've been nerfed because of how OP they were back in 1.3, and you could see the amount of deaths that you got during 1.3 from PvE was actually crazy. The NPCs were getting a lot of kills in 1.3. But I want to give my opinion on the Dark Zone and why I think it's losing players. You also have to remember, when the Division first came out, there was only one way to PvP in this game, and that was the Dark Zone. And I think a lot of those players that grew to love the Dark Zone kind of just see the Dark Zone as a PvP zone. Now, obviously, that's not why it was built, but I mean, it's kind of what people were forced to do when the game first released. So it's not surprising, with having no last stand, no skirmish, no survival, no alternative PvP modes in the game, especially considering that the first DLC was entirely PvE. It's not surprising to see a lot of those OG PvP players like myself be a little bit attached to the Dark Zone and feel like, PvP should be at least partially the main focus in the Dark Zone. And I think that the reason that the Dark Zone has kind of lost interest for most people is a couple of reasons. We're going to talk about that very quickly. I want to hear what you guys think in the comment section below. Totally, opinion here. This isn't fact. I'm not passing this off as fact, but this is what I feel, okay? Ever since 1.6, when they buffed body damage and they nerfed headshot damage by making a lot of the talents, such as Brutal, no longer multiplicative, they made it additive, and also changed on a lot of gear sets. Not only did they nerf the headshot percentage that you get, they also changed that to additive as well. So now, the headshot modifiers don't really feel rewarding when you take into consideration server lag and other stuff like that. It feels like shooting at someone's head is kind of holding you back more than it's helping, even if you have extremely good accuracy, because more bullets are going to register if you're firing into someone's body. We all know that the Division servers aren't great, and a lot of times bullets don't happen to register, which I think is a huge reason why high rate of fire weapons seem to always feel better in PvP, because more shots are being fired in a shorter window of time, which means more shots are going to register. If you're shooting a really low RPM weapon and some of the shots aren't registering, you're going to feel that lack of damage more than you are with something like a lightweight M4. Another problem with 1.6 is that they doubled the size of the Dark Zone without doubling the player count. This was one of my main concerns at ETF, was the fact that it didn't feel, Dark Zone 1 to 6 didn't feel too congested. I felt like there was enough NPCs, enough landmarks to kind of go around, and it felt good to have people constantly around you. But if you go in DZ North now, you're barely ever going to run into other players. Nobody that I know goes up there because the rewards in DZ North just aren't as good. I kind of wish that instead of having it be all one Dark Zone, it would be cut up into 2 servers. So you had a server from DZ 1 to 6, and you have a server from DZ 7, 8, 9. Since they are both similar in size, if you take into consideration all the underground landmarks and areas that are in DZ North, I think it would have been much more beneficial for them to have it so that you would go through a door and you would phase into another server in order to be into DZ North. That way there would be more contact with other players. Now, this doesn't have to necessarily mean PvP, but just maybe coming across players more often so that you can group up with them or help them in PvE. It doesn't always got to be PvP right off the bat. I think a combination of the new multiplayer modes that are kind of spreading people out away from the Dark Zone, and also considering that I think the time to kill in PvP is way off. The chicken dance is insane, and the more you nerf hipfire, the worse the chicken dance is going to be. Now, hipfire was extremely strong in the base game and also in 1.1, right? So why in 1.1 and during the beta was the chicken dance not really a thing? It was because if people ran around and strafed, you could put them down extremely fast if you were accurate with your hipfire. So someone would start strafing, you would strafe as well, but you'd hipfire them down instantly if you had really good aim. Well, you can't really do that anymore, and so you're forced to aim, and what does that do? That makes you a stationary target, and it makes the person that's running around and hip firing at a huge advantage. So what they tried doing is they tried nerfing the hip fire, when in reality, what they should have done is had the time to kill be a lot quicker so that these things wouldn't happen. It seems like when there's multiple groups in one area of the map, lag starts to kick in, bullets stop registering, and you just start to realize that you're doing a lot less damage to people when you take into consideration all the talents and all the constant heals. I think skill haste is a huge reason why the time to kill feels really weird in 1.7.1. And with the buff to stamina, although I think the stamina buff needs to exist because stamina was almost completely useless, I am really worried about the time to kill being way too high in 1.8 because of the fact that we didn't get to test the modifier that they threw in at the very last second before taking the PTS down. I think that was a really big mistake for them to do that. I think they should have released a PTS 4, especially considering how long they delayed the patch, and let us test that modifier. That scares me because with the time to kill being so crazy high in the 1.8 PTS, with the fact of people just being more tanky overall, because you got to remember, with classified sets, we're getting higher amounts of stamina. Like, even if you don't have stamina on your gear, you're getting those higher base amounts of stamina. And you're starting to become spongier and spongier, but our guns aren't really getting buffed except for the exotics, which I think got like a 2% buff or something. But I really think that the thing they need to change here is the PvP modifier, and I hope, and I've asked multiple times and they haven't answered me, I really hope that they jerk that PvP modifier up very high so that when somebody is getting buffed with resistances and constant heals, that if you hit a consistent good string of headshots and you're accurate and you have a DPS build, that you put a lot of your stats into offensive stats like crit damage and crit chance and headshot damage, you should be able to just absolutely melt that player if that's how you wanted to make your build. And in return, with the PvP modifier being raised, you as a player are also taking that risk of being a little bit squishier. But the people who run like 9k firearms builds in this game don't even really feel like that squishy because they have teammates healing them constantly. And when you take into consideration like all the talents and the fact that everyone has multiple med kits, you also have the signature abilities, which makes the time to kill even higher if you consider people, you know, popping blue and green alts all the time. So it's just, I think that the reason the population has kind of dropped over time in the Dark Zone is because they haven't really gotten that time to kill right. The reason 1.5 was kind of meh was not because the time to kill was too fast. It was because the FAMAS Alpha Bridge combo was absolutely busted. I really hope that PvP modifier that they threw in is going to help the overall time to kill for this game, because it feels like, you know, we're a little too squishy against NPCs, which the stamina buff will help, but I think we're already tanky enough in 1.7.1 when it comes to time to kill between players. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed. I hope you're as excited as I am for 1.8, and I will talk to you guys next time. Take care, everybody.
I'm just warming up and they label me a veteran. Rookie of the year. When I started I was peddling these CDs out my trunk. Speakers louder than an elephant.